Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not hear anything before Sarup Damodar heard it first. The Lord made this etiquette a regulated principle. Bhagavan Acharya submitted to Sarup Damodar Goswami. A good Brahmana has prepared a drama about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that appears exceptionally well composed. First you hear it, and if it is acceptable to your mind, I shall request Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to hear it. So last time Ghanshyam Prabhu was giving class, we were hearing like this pastime in Jagannath Puri about how Krishnaraj Kaviraj Goswami explains that in Jagannath Puri many different poets and singers and persons who used to write different pieces of literature, they used to come and ask Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to please see their work, see their poetry, or see the song they've written, or see some verses they've composed. But it was an etiquette followed that before anyone could present their work before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, firstly Sarup Damodar Goswami, he would firstly check and read the work himself to see if the work is proper and is composed nicely and is not going against the principles of bhakti, or there is no rasabas, mixing of different rasas. So firstly, Sarup Damodar Goswami, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's personal secretary, will go through the work to see whether the work is proper or not. If it's proper, then Sarup Damodar will give the green light, and then the poet or the singer or the composer would go and present his work to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But if Sarup Damodar would find any fault in the work, then he would stop that person from going forward towards Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this was the principle followed in Jagannath Puri. And now we're hearing about how one day Bhagavan Acharya, one of the very close associates of Mahaprabhu, he comes to Sarup Damodar Goswami saying how a poet has just come, and this poet or this Brahmana has composed a very nice drama about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. He's composed a drama, he's composed very nice verses glorifying Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Bhagavan Acharya, he starts glorifying that this poet, this Brahmana is very advanced, he's written this beautiful piece of poetry. You please go through it, Sarup Damodar, and most definitely you will like it, and then after you like it, you can, ask Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to also read this Brahmana's piece of work. So this is where we're up to now. So text 100, first you hear it, and if it is acceptable to your mind, I shall request Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to hear it. Sarup Damodar Goswami replied, Dear Bhagavan Acharya, you are a very liberal cowherd boy. Sometimes the desire awakens within you to hear any kind of poetry. So Sarup Damodar Goswami, he knows the nature of Bhagavan Acharya. So Bhagavan Acharya is no ordinary personality. He's a pure devotee of the Lord. He's one of the Nitya Siddha devotees of Mahaprabhu, of Krishna. And his nature was such that he was very liberal. He used to, just like we hear, the advanced devotees, they don't find fault in anyone. They just see the good in everyone. So Bhagavan Acharya, he was like that. Even though someone might have composed something, improperly, there might have been some rasabas or this and that, he would overlook all their faults and he would just see the good, and, in his own pure devotion, ecstasy, he would just see everyone as great devotees of the Lord. So this is the nature of a highly advanced devotee, that his nature is to just see the good in everyone and not find any fault. So Bhagavan Acharya, he was like this. So Sarup Damodar Goswami, he teases Bhagavan Acharya, that Bhagavan Acharya, I know how you act, I know how you behave. You just accept everyone and everyone, you don't discriminate who's good or bad. So you're telling me that this Brahmana, he's written very nice piece of poetry, but most likely, there'll most likely be some faults in his piece of work. And because you're very liberal, you just want to give credit to everyone, you just want to glorify everyone. So in that mood, you're bringing to me. But most likely, I know for certain that this so-called poetry you're bringing to me, it will be full of faults. My dear Bhagavan Acharya, you are a very liberal cowherd boy. Sometimes the desire awakens within you to hear any kind of poetry. In the writings of so-called poets, there is generally a possibility of overlapping transcendental mellows, when the mellows thus go against the conclusive understanding. No one likes to hear such poetry. A so-called poet who has no knowledge of transcendental mellows and the overlapping of transcendental mellows cannot cross the ocean of the conclusions of devotional service. A poet who does not know the grammatical, regulated principles, who is unfamiliar with metaphorical ornaments, especially those employed in drama, and who does not know how to present the pastimes of Lord Krishna is condemned. Moreover, the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are especially difficult to understand. So Bhagavan Acharya, from his side, as a pure devotee, he's seeing the good in everyone, and he wants to just like Srimati Radharani's mood is, that she just sees us doing a little good thing, and she'll tell Krishna, she'll tell Gopinath that, just see how nicely this devotee is doing this for you. This devotee is so great, he's even better than me. So this is the mood of Srimati Radharani. She's always pushing us forward she's always recommending us to Gopinath, saying that this devotee, he's so great, he's even better than me. So you please accept him, you please bless him with your choicest blessings. So Bhagavan Acharya, he has that same mood. He's not seeing the faults of this Brahmana's work, and his mood is to just bring everyone to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, get everyone to get the blessings of Mahaprabhu. So this is the mood of Bhagavan Acharya. He's pure consciousness. Swarup Damodar Goswami on the other side, he is also a pure devotee of the Lord, a Nityasiddha devotee of the Lord. He's also Lalita Shaki in Vrindavan, the most closest associate of Srimati Radharani. So he also has a pure mood, but in a different way. Swarup Damodar Goswami's mood is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is the Supreme Lord, so the best of everything should be offered to the Supreme Lord. Just like when it comes to offering bhoga to Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. So different devotees, they bring, fruits or vegetables, and we want to offer the best of everything to their Lordship, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. So when the pujaris, they get some bhoga offering, some fruits or vegetables, they go through it and say some fruits are starting to rot, or there's some black spots, then it's not the best of offerings for Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, so they'll take that to the side and offer the fruits and vegetables that look very nice, because they are the king and the queen. The best of everything should be offered to them. Certain fruits and vegetables which are damaged, so and so forth, they'll keep it aside. Because they are the king and the queen, they deserve the best. So in that mood, Swarup Damodar Goswami, his service was, he wanted, the best of all poetry, the best of all music, drama, to be recited in front of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this was his service. So he would discriminate and he would analyze. If certain pieces of poetry or certain songs or certain dramas were composed in an irregular way or composed with some faults, composed in a way which is not according to Shastra, then he would point those faults out and he wouldn't let that piece of drama or poetry be put forward to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because his mood is, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Lord, the best of everything should be offered to him. And he can't, this is out of love. Out of love, he wants to offer the best to the Lord. And he doesn't want, even a tinge of distress coming into Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's consciousness. Because when a certain song or a drama is recited before the Lord, which isn't according to regulated principles, then that will cause pain to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mind and heart. And Swarup Damodar Goswami, he can't tolerate that. So out of love, Swarup Damodar Goswami, he used to do this service of making sure that the best of everything was offered to the Supreme Lord. We see even with Srila Prabhupada, he also had a similar arrangement, just like we have with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had his personal secretary, Swarup Damodar Goswami, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also had a personal servant, Govinda. Govinda used to take care of all personal service of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like serve him prasad, massage him when he goes to sleep, so on and so forth. More bodily necessities. And Swarup Damodar, he would be the personal secretary, which means if someone wanted an interview with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Swarup Damodar would see who is fit to have an interview. He would organize Mahaprabhu's schedule, everything like that. And Srila Prabhupada, he also had a similar arrangement. Prabhupada had one personal secretary and he also had a personal servant. So some of the famous personal servants of Srila Prabhupada are Harisori Prabhu, Nandakumar Prabhu, Upendra Prabhu. And the personal secretary, Prabhupada used to change quite often. Personal servants, they would travel with Srila Prabhupada for a long time, many, many months, for a year or so. But the personal secretary, Prabhupada used to change every month or two because he wanted to give more and more disciples, his personal sangha. So different sannyasis, GBCs, temple presidents, Prabhupada would get to play the role as a personal secretary of Srila Prabhupada. So any letters which people used to write to Srila Prabhupada used to get his personal secretary to read it out loud to him. Prabhupada would hear the letter, and then Prabhupada would again dictate a letter back. And the personal secretary would type out the letter. So in this way it's given that Srila Prabhupada managed the whole worldwide ISKCON society. So at the age of 70, 50 years ago, Srila Prabhupada started the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. Prabhupada established 108 temples of Krishna all around the world. And he did all of this without a cell phone, without internet, without SMS, without WhatsApp. Imagine that, communicating and organizing and overlooking 108 temples, not in one zone, but all around the world. Prabhupada managed 108 temples along with hundreds and thousands of devotees all around the world without a phone, mobile phone, without internet, SMS, nothing. Simply through letters. Physically writing letters or dictating letters, Prabhupada managed the whole worldwide society. So you can just imagine, how much expertise, transcendental expertise Srila Prabhupada had. So in any sense you look at Srila Prabhupada's life, Prabhupada was doing a miracle after miracle. It's a miracle itself to establish so many temples of Krishna all around the world in places where people have never heard of Krishna before. And another thing, to manage all of that single-handedly, simply through letters. So, and then of course, Prabhupada's most amazing contribution is his transcendental books, which Prabhupada said will be the law books for mankind for the next 10,000 years. So in this way, Swarup Damodar Goswami, he used to do this service for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and although sometimes it seems that he's a bit harsh or arrogant, a bit strict, that strictness is done out of love. Because his mood is that he is the Supreme Lord, the best of everything should be offered to him. If something is not proper, then he will openly point it out that this is not proper, this is not good, it's not fit to be offered to the Supreme Lord, so please don't come forward, like this Swarup Damodar would say. So this is one of the instances. So this Brahmana poet is coming. He's written a drama about Mahaprabhu. Bhagavan Acharya, in his different mood of being very liberal, wanting everyone to be glorified, wanting everyone to come close to Mahaprabhu, he's saying that you please, pass forward this drama to Mahaprabhu. But Swarup Damodar Goswami, he will now inspect this drama and point out the faults. In the writings, okay, we read that, we're on text 106. One who has accepted the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as his life and soul can describe the pastimes of Lord Krishna or the pastimes of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So here in Swarup Damodar Goswami, he is giving the qualification for us to be able to describe the pastimes of Krishna or the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There is one qualification, which is that if we have truly accepted the lotus feet of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, or truly accepted the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as our life and soul, if we are fully dedicated to serving them, then that is the qualification to speak about Krishna. That is the qualification to speak about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in India, Prabhupada used to criticize how there's many professional speakers of Srimad Bhagavatam or Krishna Katha. Just to make a living, they will hold, Bhagavatam classes, Bhagavatam Safta. They will talk about Krishna. But if you analyze their lives, their life and soul isn't Krishna, During their other rest of the time, they will be engaged in mature activities. But to earn a living, they will come, get some 1,000 people in a tent and speak about Krishna. They will collect money just simply to fill their belly. But then in their off time, they would, just do all mature activities. So Prabhupada used to be very critical of persons like this, and Prabhupada also used to say that instead of going through Bhagavatam sequentially, all these professional reciters of Srimad Bhagavatam, they would just jump straight to 10th canto and just talk about the Rasa Leela. And Prabhupada used to say this is improper to openly speak about Rasa Leela for the open public. It's not for entertainment. And Prabhupada used to say you should go sequentially through Bhagavatam. First canto, second canto, third canto, and slowly make your way up to 10th canto, where the Rasa Leela and the intimate pastimes of the Lord are described. And it shouldn't be something that is openly discussed in public. Because then people will take the pastimes of Krishna very cheaply, and then they will commit offenses. And by committing offenses, instead of going closer to Krishna, they will go away from Krishna. So in this verse, Swarupa Damodar Goswami is saying that the real qualification to talk about Krishna is that you yourself should be a devotee of Krishna. If you yourself are a devotee of Krishna, worshipping Shri Shri Radha Gopinath with all sincerity, dedicating your life and soul to worshipping them, then that is the qualification. Now you're qualified to talk about Krishna. But if you have your own personal life, where you engage in mature activities, and then you just have, a small part of the day where you just come and just do bhakti for sure, then Swarupa Damodar Goswami is saying, then you're bound to commit offenses while talking about Krishna. Text 107. Hearing the poetry of a person who has no transcendental knowledge and who writes about the relationships between man and woman simply causes unhappiness, whereas hearing the words of a devotee fully absorbed in ecstatic love causes great happiness. So now Swarupa Damodar Goswami, he is explaining about the effect of hearing Krishna Katha from two different types of persons. One is, if you hear Krishna Katha from a properly practicing devotee of Krishna, then the result is you'll be very happy and blissful. The Krishna Katha will be potent and you will feel great satisfaction and bliss simply by hearing. But if the Krishna Katha is being recited by a materialistic person who's just doing it for show or just doing it for money or for material ulterior reasons, then the end result will be you won't feel fully satisfied at heart. Instead, you'll be overcome with unhappiness and misery. The standard for writing dramas has been set by Rupa Goswami. If a devotee hears the introductory portions of his two dramas, they enhance his transcendental pleasure. So now Swarupa Damodar Goswami, he is giving an example of a piece of literature which is proper and which is a proper standard to aim for. And Srila Swarupa Damodar Goswami is giving the example of Rupa Goswami, that this drama is written by Rupa Goswami, Lalita Madhav, Vidagdha Madhava. They are the proper standard of transcendental literature, which we should all follow. Despite the explanation of Swarupa Damodar, Bhagavan Acharya requested, please hear the drama once. If you hear it, you can consider whether it is good or bad. So despite all these explanations by Swarupa Damodar Goswami, still Bhagavan Acharya is pleading, okay, I understand all this, but please, you just hear this Brahmana's poetry. You just hear his drama. It's very nice. For 2 or 3 days, Bhagavan Acharya continually asked Swarupa Damodar Goswami to hear the poetry. Because of his repeated requests, Swarupa Damodar Goswami wanted to hear the poetry written by the Brahmana from Bengal. So for 2-3 days, Bhagavan Acharya repeatedly kept on asking Swarupa Damodar, please hear this, just give this Brahmana a chance, just hear his piece of poetry. And then finally Swarupa Damodar, he says, okay, I'll hear. Swarupa Damodar Goswami sat down with other devotees to hear the poetry. And then the poet began to read the introductory verse. Okay, so this is the introductory verse that this Brahmana has written for his work of poetry. It goes like this. The Supreme Personality Godhead has assumed a golden complexion and has become the soul of the body named Lord Jagannath, whose blooming lotus eyes are widely expanded. Thus, he has appeared in Jagannath Puri and brought dull matter to life. May that Lord Shri Krishna Chaitanya Dev bestow all good fortune upon you. So this is the introductory verse or sloka in this Brahmana's work of poetry. When everyone present heard the verse, they all commended the poet But Swarup Damodar Goswami requested him, kindly explain this verse. So when everyone heard this opening verse, everyone was, clapping their hands, saying, wow, this is a very nice verse, very nicely composed, well done, well done. Everyone except for one person, which was Swarup Damodar Goswami. He was very grave, and Swarup Damodar Goswami, he requested him, kindly explain this verse which you have composed. Text 114. The poet said, Lord Jagannath is a most beautiful body, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is exceptionally grave, is the owner of that body. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared here in Nilachal, Jagannath Puri, to spiritualize the entire dull material world. Hearing this, everyone present was greatly happy. But Swarup Damodar, who alone was very unhappy, began to speak in great anger. So again, when he is explaining his introductory verse, everyone in the assembly, they're all again congratulating this Brahmana poet that yes, this is a very nice verse and very nicely you've explained the meaning. Everyone except for Swarup Damodar Goswami. Swarup Damodar Goswami is very grave, and while everyone is happy, he himself alone is actually very unhappy. And then it's explained, in great anger, he will now start to chastise this Brahmana poet. You are a fool, he said. You have brought ill fortune upon yourself, for you have no knowledge of the existence of the two Lords, Jagannath Dev and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, nor have you faith in them. So when we hear that Swarup Damodar Goswami, in anger, he's chastising this Brahmana poet, this doubt can come in our mind. How is it that Swarup Damodar Goswami, who is a pure devotee of the Lord, how is it that he's becoming angry? Isn't anger a material quality or material emotion? Someone who is a sadhu, someone who is a great saint, someone who is a pure devotee of the Lord, he should never become angry. He should always be very peaceful and happy and relaxed. He should never be agitated by anger. So how is it that Swarup Damodar Goswami now is showing anger? Is he coming down? How is it that he's displaying this? So according to the Shastras, it is explained that every single emotion we have can be used in a spiritual sense. Just like greed is said to be a bad quality, to be greedy. But greed can also be spiritualized. How? Instead of being greedy to get money for ourselves, instead of being greedy to get material possessions for our own enjoyment, one becomes greedy to bring pleasure to Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. So that's spiritual greed. Because that greed is not for ourselves, that greed is to, instead of being greedy to satisfy our own senses, we become greedy that, let us bring more and more pleasure to Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. This anniversary we did this. Next year on the 52nd anniversary, let's do it even bigger. Let us do even more offerings. Let us do, let us give a better offering to Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. So in this way, a devotee is always greedy to give more and more pleasure to Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. Same way, it's given that anger can also be used in devotional service. How so? Ordinarily speaking, mature anger comes when our mature desires are frustrated. We have some personal desire that we want to do something for our own pleasure, for our own happiness. And when someone gets in our way, that is the time when we get frustrated. That is the time when we get angry. That I want this thing, I want to do this thing, and this person or this thing is getting in my way. I want to fulfill this material desire, but this particular person or object is getting in my way. So then we become frustrated and we let the anger out onto that person who is getting in our way of enjoyment. So that is mature anger. According to Shastra, spiritual anger can also be used in bhakti, anger can also be used in devotional service. And the proper use of anger in devotional service is when the Supreme Lord is being blasphemed or criticized, or when the devotees of the Lord are being blasphemed and criticized. So in these two instances, when someone is blaspheming the Supreme Lord, speaking ill about the Supreme Lord, or when someone is blaspheming the devotees of the Lord, in these two instances, the Shastras explain that one can use anger, and that anger is bona fide, that anger is spiritual. And that is the proper use of anger. In fact, it's given that the proper behavior from our side should be if there is some blasphemy of the Supreme Lord going on, either we should stop that person from blaspheming. If we can't stop that person, then we should immediately run away from that spot. Close our ears and run away and not hear blasphemy of the Lord. Or if we can't do either of the two, if we can't stop that person from speaking ill about the Lord, and if we can't run away from that place, then the Shastra says one should just commit suicide. That is the effect of blasphemy, hearing blasphemy of the Supreme Lord. Because the more we hear blasphemy of the Lord, the more our consciousness will go down, the more severe sinful reactions are given. So two options are given. Either you should try and stop that person, it's given. One should cut that person's tongue, which means one should challenge them and defeat them with logic and arguments and stop that person from continuing to blaspheme the Lord. If one is not spiritually strong enough to stop that person by argument, then just run away from that place and not hear blasphemy of the Lord or blasphemy of the devotees. And this is done out of love. Just like a mother, she loves her child very much. And if someone else starts criticizing the mother's son or daughter, then immediately the mother's heart will be broken. How can you say these harsh words about my son or daughter? Then, the mother can't tolerate hearing such bad, harsh words about her own children. So either the mother would, in anger, blast back at that person, or the mother will, just run away from the spot, being unable to tolerate hearing such blasphemy. So this reaction from the mother's side is done out of love. The mother loves her son or daughter so much that she can't bear to hear any bad words about her children being spoken by another person. So in the same way, the pure devotees of the Lord, they love the Supreme Lord so much, their love is so intense, they can't tolerate to hear even a few words of blasphemy against the Supreme Lord. So whenever some blasphemy comes, then either they'll get angry and chastise that person, stop that person from continuing to speak such blasphemy, or they'll just run away from the spot. So this is done out of love. So this is what we're seeing now with Swarup Damodar Goswami. This Brahmana poet has composed this drama, and in his opening verse, actually he is speaking some words which are actually insulting to Lord Jagannath and to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when the other devotees aren't able to pick this up, but Swarup Damodar Goswami, he is able to pick this up. And when he hears this, he becomes very angry because he is hearing some blasphemy of the Supreme Lord. So now, out of love for the Supreme Lord, Swarup Damodar Goswami will correct this Brahmana. Text 118. Lord Jagannath is completely spiritual and full of transcendental bliss, but you have compared him to a dull, destructible body, composed of the inert, external energy of the Lord. So in the sloka this Brahmana had composed, he had written that the Supreme Personality Godhead has assumed a golden complexion and has become the soul of the body named Lord Jagannath, whose blooming lotus eyes are widely expanded. Thus he has appeared in Jagannath Puri and brought dull matter to life. So this poet is saying that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared, and appearing in Jagannath Puri, he has brought dull matter to life. So when he's talking about dull matter, he's referring to Lord Jagannath. He's saying that Lord Jagannath is like material. He is the body, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is like the soul. And he has entered into the body of Lord Jagannath and has brought life to Lord Jagannath. So if you think about it, it's actually very blasphemous against Lord Jagannath and also against Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Jagannath is completely spiritual and full of transcendental bliss, but you have compared him to a dull, destructible body composed of the inert, external energy of the Lord. You have calculated Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the Supreme Personality Godhead, full in 6 opulences, to be on the level of an ordinary living being. Instead of knowing him as a supreme fire, you have accepted him as a spark. Swarup Damodar continued, because you have committed an offense to Lord Jagannath and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you will attain a hellish destination. You do not know how to describe the absolute truth, but nevertheless you have tried to do so. Therefore, you must be condemned. So Swarup Damodar Goswami is saying, because of the offenses that you have committed at the lotus feet of Lord Jagannath and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as a reaction for that, you will have to attain a hellish destination. You have to suffer there. You are in complete illusion, for you have distinguished between the body and the soul of His Lordship, Lord Jagannath or Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That is a great offense. So for us, there is a difference between us, the soul, and the body. This body that we're in is material. At the time of death, this body will decompose and go into the earth. And we are the spiritual spark inside this body. We are the Atma or the soul. So for us, we are the spiritual spark inside this material body. But with Krishna and Krishna's expansions, there is no difference between the body of Krishna and Krishna Himself. Krishna is His body. Krishna's body is completely spiritual. There's no question of a difference between Krishna and Krishna's body. Krishna's body is Satchid Ananda Vigraha, is completely spiritual. So when someone makes this distinction that Krishna the soul and Krishna's body is different, then they're committing an aparad. They're committing an offense against the Supreme Lord, because they're bringing down the Supreme Lord onto the same platform as the jivas, as us fallen conditioned souls. So Krishna, Him and His body is all one, it's all spiritual. And same thing with the pure devotees of the Lord in Goloka Vrindavan. So Krishna and all of His eternal associates in Goloka Vrindavan, they all have spiritual bodies. It's not that they have material bodies there and they're the soul inside. No, everyone in Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna and His associates, they all have Satchid Ananda forms or vigrahas. At no time is there a distinction between the body and the soul of the Supreme Personal Godhead. His personal identity and His body are made of blissful spiritual energy. There is no distinction between them. There is no distinction between the body and the soul of the Supreme Personal Godhead at any time. So then in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sri Damodar Goswami is reciting some verses from 3rd Canto Bhagavatam. We'll skip that, go to 126. Whereas Krishna, the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Personal Godhead, is full of transcendental bliss, possesses all 6 spiritual opulences in full, and is the master of the mature energy. The small conditioned soul, who is always unhappy, is the servant of the mature energy. The Supreme Personal Godhead, the Supreme Controller, is always full of transcendental bliss, and is accompanied by the potencies known as Hladini and Samvit. The conditioned soul, however, is always covered by ignorance and embarrassed by the threefold miseries of life. Thus, he is a treasure house of all kinds of tribulations. So further verses are recited, distinguishing us from the Supreme Lord. So for us, our position is such that we're covered over by Maya, or we're covered over by Durga Devi, by the mature energy, and we're all being enslaved by Durga Devi, and we're all made to suffer by the trident of Durga Devi. So Durga Devi, she has a trident, and the 3 points of the trident, they represent the 3 types of miseries we undergo in mature existence. One is miseries caused by other living entities, miseries caused by our own mind, and thirdly, miseries caused by mature nature, natural disasters, so on and so forth. So that's what Durga Devi's trident represents. So that is our position. We are suffering under the trident of Durga Devi. Whereas Krishna, he is the master of Durga Devi. Durga Devi is just another servant of Krishna. So in this way, the distinction is made between Krishna and us, tiny parts and parcels of Krishna. Hearing this explanation, all the members of the assembly were struck with wonder. Sri Damodar Goswami has spoken the real truth, they admitted. The Brahmana from Bengal has committed an offense by wrongly describing Lord Jagannath and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So previously, everyone in the assembly, they were, clapping their hands, saying, this Brahmana, such nice poetry he's composed. But after hearing Sri Damodar Goswami's criticism and his analysis of the poetry, then everyone else also admit that, yes, actually this Brahmana, he has done a great aparad, he's done a great offense at the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu and Jagannath. And what Sri Damodar has said is definitely the truth. When the Bengali poet heard this chastisement from Sri Damodar Goswami, he was ashamed, fearful and astonished. Indeed, being like a duck in a society of white swans, he could not say anything. Seeing the poet's unhappiness, Sri Damodar Goswami, who was naturally very kind-hearted, advised him so that he could derive some benefit. So after being openly chastised in front of everyone, this Brahmana poet, you can just imagine his position. He was feeling very ashamed of himself. He was feeling very embarrassed, and he was feeling very fearful that, oh my God, I committed such great aparadh. And he was feeling very ashamed, how could I have done such a thing? And he was feeling great embarrassment. So if we put ourselves in that position, it's one thing to be chastised in private. If you're chastised in private, there's some distress we feel, but more distress is when openly, in front of others we get chastised. Because then so many other people, they hear about our faults, and then that chastisement is even more powerful, it's even more painful to our heart. So this is what this Brahmana went through. He got the mercy from Swarup Damodar Goswami, not in private, but amongst other devotees who were assembled there. So naturally he was feeling very ashamed and very embarrassed, and he was very much feeling very down and low. So Swarup Damodar Goswami, he notices that this Brahmana, now he's gone down a bit. And Swarup Damodar Goswami, naturally being a kind-hearted devotee of the Lord, he takes compassion upon this Brahmana. He starts feeling a bit bad towards this Brahmana, and he starts thinking, how can I benefit this Brahmana? So now Swarup Damodar Goswami, he will start advising this Brahmana into how to properly write spiritual literatures, how to properly compose spiritual literatures. So now Swarup Damodar Goswami, out of his kindness, will advise this Brahmana for his benefit. Seeing the poet's unhappiness, Swarup Damodar Goswami, who was naturally very kind-hearted, advised him so that he could derive some benefit. If you want to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, he said, you must approach a self-realized Vaishnava and hear from him. You can do this when you have completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Swarup Damodar continued, associate regularly with the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for then only will you understand the waves of the ocean of devotional service. So what advice does Swarup Damodar give? He said that if you want to properly compose transcendental literature, first thing you need to do is you have to study Srimad Bhagavatam. So it is said that in this whole universe, there is no greater literature, there is no greater book or piece of literature greater than Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the topmost piece of transcendental literature in this universe. And not only is Bhagavatam being heard and recited in our planet Earth, but in all the planetary systems, Bhagavatam is being heard and recited. There are descriptions given in the Shastra of how Lord Brahma, he is reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Shiva is reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, and even Vishnu himself and Mother Lakshmi, they are also reading and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So in this universe, there is no greater literature than Srimad Bhagavatam, which exclusively glorifies Krishna and Krishna's avatars and glorifies devotional service, pure bhakti. So that's the first advice Swarup Damodar Goswami gives to this poet. That, okay, you're a poet, you compose dramas or songs. If you want your piece of work to be proper, then the first thing you need to do, you have to study Srimad Bhagavatam. Because in Srimad Bhagavatam, everything will be explained. And secondly, he says that you should study Srimad Bhagavatam from a properly self-realized Vaishnava. So one can hear Bhagavatam from many persons, just like we were talking before, how in India there's many professional Bhagavatam reciters who just do it as a profession. They just get a group of people to come, they take money from them, and they just do it as a sake of living. So hearing from such professional Bhagavatam reciters won't have full effect, because they're not living Srimad Bhagavatam, they're not practicing bhakti themselves, they're just doing it just as a profession, just to make money. So Bhagavatam should be heard from a person who is living the Bhagavatam, from a person who is conducting Bhagavatam, conducting himself according to the principles of Bhagavatam. So this is the verdict of Swarup Damodar Goswami, that firstly you must hear Srimad Bhagavatam, study Bhagavatam, and you should study it under a properly practicing devotee of the Lord. Not from anyone, but a devotee of Krishna, you should hear Srimad Bhagavatam. And the third advice Swarup Damodar Goswami says is that you should regularly associate with the devotees of the Lord. You should get some sadhu sangha. Because it's one thing to have the book Bhagavatam in our house, and we can read ourselves personally, but to fully understand, what the Bhagavatam is describing, to fully understand the themes and the lessons of the Bhagavatam, we need the association of devotees. On our own endeavor, it will be very hard for us to understand the Bhagavatam. And Lord Kapila Dev, he explains this in 3rd canto of Bhagavatam. Lord Kapila Dev says, Satam prasangan mama virya samvido bhavanti hirkana rasayana kataha. So Lord Kapila Dev is saying that Krishna Katha, when it is discussed in an assembly of devotees, Satam means devotees, Satam prasangan mama virya samvido. Mama means my, virya means activities. So when someone hears about my activities in the association of other devotees, then that Krishna Katha will be more potent and will be more nectarian to the ear and to the heart. So either we can hear Krishna Katha or read Krishna Katha by ourselves, or we can read and discuss Krishna Katha in the association of devotees. Lord Kapila Dev says, if we read and hear in the association of other devotees, that Krishna Katha will be more potent, will be more powerful, and will purify us a lot more than if we just do it ourselves. Secondly, Lord Kapila Dev says, that Krishna Katha which we do in a group with other devotees will also be more nectarian, will be more tasty, and more juicy, and more blissful to our ears and our heart. Satam prasangan mama virya samvido bhavanti hritkana rasayana katha. So rasa means something very tasty or juicy, like rasgulla, gulab jamun, something very tasty and sweet. When you put a rasgulla in your mouth, you feel very blissful and happy. Just chewing the nice soft rasgulla makes you feel very happy, and you can taste the rasa of the rasgulla gulab jamun. So that is rasa. Rasayana means something that brings out the rasa. So when we hear Krishna Katha, instead of by ourselves, if we do it in a group with others, then that rasa especially comes out. That flavor, the taste of Krishna Katha especially comes out, and it becomes even more tasty. And it's pleasing both to the ears and to the heart. Hrit and karna. Hrit means the region of the heart. Okay, so our hearts will be very soothed, just like during our day-to-day lives, we undergo a lot of stress and anxieties, either in terms of family issues, issues at work, issues traveling to work, issues, driving our children to school, this issue, that issue. So we go through many different problems in life. And our mind is affected by many different anxieties and stress. Lord Kapila Dev says, you just hear Bhagavatam, study Bhagavatam in the association of other devotees, and it will soothe your heart. So our hearts are full of many different things, anxieties and stresses. But if we just take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, it will have a very cooling, soothing effect onto our hearts. Just like during summer, when we go out, you'll be sweating a lot. Sun will be burning your skin. Even after putting sunscreen, you could feel the sun rays burning you. And every year, due to global warming, it gets hotter and hotter and hotter. 40 degrees, 45 degrees, 48 degrees. I remember during the bushfire season 2 years ago, temperatures hit 47, 48 degrees in western suburbs, in Penrith, Wentworthville, so on and so forth. So during summer, when you're out there doing something, out in the open sun, you can feel the heat, the rays of the sun burning your skin, you'll be sweating, and you'll be so much dehydrated. But then what happens when you enter a nice air-conditioned mall, or a Westfield? As soon as the sliding doors open, you enter in, and the cool air-conditioned air hits your face, you feel great relief, You feel like, so nice, That soothing effect is there. That all this, last few hours I was out in the sun sweating, and now finally I'm in this air-conditioned room. And you feel that great relief, and that soothing feeling is there for the heart. So Lord Kapila Dev says, that same effect you'll experience when you hear Bhagavatam, when you hear Krishna Katha, in the association of devotees of the Lord. That soothing effect for the heart will be there. And secondly, it will be very pleasing and nectarian for the ears. So different senses, they want different things. Our eyes want to see something very beautiful. And all the desires of our eyes can be fully satisfied when we take darshan of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. Same way our nose wants to smell nice things. And all the desires of our nose will be satisfied when we smell some nice prasad of the Lord. Either some tulsi offered to the Supreme Lord, some fragrant oil which we offer to Lord Nashima Day when we smell that, or some flowers which is offered to the Lord. When we smell that flower, we feel fully satisfied. In the same way, the ears, they have many desires to hear nice things, to hear nice music, to hear something very pleasing. And all the desires that our ears have will be fully satisfied, Lord Kapila says, when we hear Krishna Katha in the association of devotees. So this verse comes in 3rd Canto Bhagavatam. It's a very nice verse. Satam prasangan mama virya samindo bhavanti hritkana rasayana katha tad josana asu apavarga vatmani shraddha ratir bhaktir anukramisyati. Then finally Lord Kapila says that 3 things happen when we hear Krishna Katha in a group with other devotees. When we study Krishna Katha with other devotees, you will notice 3 things happening. One is Shraddha. We will notice our faith in Krishna and devotional service increasing more and more and more. Secondly, Shraddha Rati. Rati means one's attraction. As we hear about Krishna more and more in the association of devotees, our faith will increase more and more in the Supreme Lord, and our attraction to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord will increase more and more. And thirdly, Shraddha Ratir Bhakti. Our bhakti or our love and devotion towards Shri Shri Radha Gopinath will also increase as we hear more and more in the association of devotees. So these are the 3 benefits Lord Kapila Dev gives when we hear Krishna Katha in a group with others. One is our faith will increase, our attraction will increase, and our bhakti will increase. These 3 things will increase. So that's why Swarup Damodar Goswami is advising this Brahmana poet out of compassion. That, okay, if you want to properly write a piece of transcendental literature, firstly you have to study Srimad Bhagavatam. Because in Srimad Bhagavatam, all the conclusion of all the Shastras are presented. You just study this one book, Srimad Bhagavatam, you understand all the truths about Krishna, and you won't make this mistake again of, committing an offense, improperly describing the glories of the Supreme Lord. So you hear Srimad Bhagavatam, study Bhagavatam, but you do it under a proper bona fide devotee of the Lord. Not from anyone and everyone, but a properly practicing devotee of the Lord. And thirdly, you associate with other devotees of the Lord. And by their association, you will be able to understand Srimad Bhagavatam. By their association, you will understand more and more about Krishna, his pastimes, his glories, about bhakti, so on and so forth. So in this way, Swarup Damodar Goswami, he emphasizes studying Bhagavatam and sadhu sangha, association with devotees. Text 133. Only if you follow the principles of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees will your learning be successful. Then you will be able to write about the transcendental pastimes of Krishna without material contamination. You have composed this introductory verse to your great satisfaction, but the meaning you have expressed is contaminated by offenses to both Lord Jagannath and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You have written something irregular, not knowing the regulatory principles. But the goddess of learning, Saraswati, has used your words to offer her prayers to the Supreme Lord. I was hearing one thing by His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. He was explaining that when we are preaching Krishna Katha to others, for our preaching to be effective, we should be able to do 3 things. One is, our Krishna Katha should be authoritative. Secondly, it should be pleasing. And thirdly, it should be done out of compassion. If our speaking of Krishna Katha ticks these 3 boxes, then those persons who are hearing that Krishna Katha, they will be benefited and they will be able to take it to their heart. So the first one is, whatever we're speaking has to be properly according to Shastra, properly according to Guru and Parampara. It has to be authoritative, which means we're not just speaking whatever is going on in our own mind, but we're just presenting the Shastra as it is, according to what we heard from the previous acharyas. So whatever we're speaking has to be properly authoritative. Secondly, Maharaj says, whatever we're speaking has to be pleasing, which means we should take the responsibility to present, the teachings of Mahaprabhu, present the teachings of Bhagavatam Krishna, in a way which is pleasing to the ears of the general public. So we should think of ways of how we can present Krishna consciousness or Krishna Katha in an attractive, pleasing way. And thirdly, he says, our preaching should be done out of compassion. Many times we can be giving advice to someone or telling them someone, but it could be done in a mood of frustration or anger, or a mood of, I'm better than you, therefore you should do like this, do like that. And when that person we're speaking to, when they notice that we have this arrogance or that feeling of, we're just showing our superiority, then immediately they switch off. You might preach to them, for 1 hour, but whatever you're saying, it will just go through 1 year and come out through the other year. Because that person notices that this person is just letting out his frustration on me, or he's just trying to be the boss, or he's just trying to act superior to me. So when people, they don't feel that love, then immediately they switch off and they don't listen to you. You could be using all nice, pleasing words, nice metaphors, examples. We could be, speaking the truth from the Shastra properly according to Guru and Parampara. But if people, they don't feel that love, they don't feel that compassion, that care, then they switch off. So that third thing is also very important, that when we're preaching or giving Krishna Katha to others, it should be done out of love and care. It should be done out of compassion. And when people, they feel that, okay, he just wants to benefit me, he wants to help me, when they feel that love and care, when they feel that compassion, then naturally they will listen. And that's what can be seen here with Jai Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Ki Jai. That's what we can see here with Swarup Damodar Goswami. He is not chastising and correcting this Brahmana out of any personal prejudice against this Brahmana, but out of love and care. Firstly, he chastises him, but secondly, he's seeing that this Brahmana, he's feeling a bit ashamed and fearful. Let me give him some advice, some tips on how he can improve himself and become a proper Vaishnava poet. So he's doing it out of love and care, just like a parent lovingly corrects the children for the children's benefit. Swarup Damodar Goswami, in that mood, with great love and compassion, he is advising this Brahmana. And this Brahmana, he can feel that Swarup Damodar, he doesn't have anything personal against me, he's doing it for my own benefit. So whatever Swarup Damodar is instructing will go into this Brahmana's heart, and this Brahmana will rectify himself. So these three things, Radhanath Maharaj explains, we should always remember. That if we want our preaching to be effective, it has to be, number one, according to proper authority. It should be coming down in disciplic succession. It should be authoritative. Secondly, it should be pleasing, which means we should present Krishna Katha in a way which is very pleasing to hear for others in an attractive way. So we should think, how should I present Bhagavatam in a way which is attractive to others? Okay, today there will be this type of audience. Okay, today I'm giving a class to youth. What should I speak for the youth? What example should I give? So I'll capture the attention of the youth. So in this way, we should take that extra step to make our presentation of Krishna Katha in a pleasing, attractive manner. And thirdly, it should be done out of compassion, out of care and love. And when people notice that we're simply talking out of care, love, compassion, then they will take it to their heart. We'll stop here. It's 8:30 now. Yes.
What is the transcendental melody? And also, what is the overlapping of the transcendental melody? Is there any example we can give? It's mentioned in couple shlokas, 97 shlokas. Can you cover that?
Yeah, technical details of Rasa Bas is given in Nectar of Devotion. So if you read the second half of Nectar of Devotion, there's many examples given of overlapping of different rasas. But to help us understand in principle the mixing of rasas, inappropriate mixing rasas, Ghanshyam Prabhu, if you remember last class, he was giving the example how one time his Guru Maharaj was traveling through Mayapur and he saw there was one particular temple of Mahaprabhu. And in this particular temple of Mahaprabhu, the deity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in the form of a sannyasi with his hair cut off. And His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj was explaining that actually this isn't proper. This is, this is an example of Rasa Bas, because the mood of Navadvip is such that they can't stand to see the Supreme Lord have his hair shaved off. that they can't bear to see this. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas and he cut off his hair, everyone, in Navadvip, they were just shedding torrents and torrents of tears. How can the Supreme Lord cut off his own beautiful hair? So this very much breaks the hearts of all the residents of Navadvip. So to have a deity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in that form is not proper. Jayapati Maharaj is explaining. To be in Navadvip, it's a inappropriate mixing of rasas. So that's an example of rasa bas Ghanshyam Prabhu is giving. But more technical, what are the different rasas, how they mix, actual examples, it's given in Nectar of Devotion. So if you read the second half, there's one particular section which talks about that. You will get more detailed examples of that. Okay. Shri Caitanya Caritamrta ki jai, Jaguru Shri Prabhupada ki jai, entire Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.